Hola YouTube, aquí estamos. Está Lili, mamá Dulce. Aquí está Dulcis. Y Sebastián. Están los aparatitos. Viendo cómo está todo bien. Saludos YouTube.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing some of my pregnancy experiences, but also mainly focusing about my birth experience. And so I'm just really happy to be back in YouTube. I have been gone for like 3+ months, partially because I gave birth to my son Sebastian, and also because I had some unexpected complications that just really prevented me from doing much at all. So I'm just really excited to be back, and I'm excited that you are here with me. So if you are new here to my channel, then welcome. I post videos about beauty and fashion and just lifestyle and things that I'm interested in. And if you are not new to my channel, then welcome back. So if you are at all interested in hearing what my experience was like with pregnancy and birth, then please keep watching. Alright, so I definitely had to make notes because it's been, like I said, like over 3 months now since I gave birth. So just don't mind me if I'm looking at my notes. At 40 weeks and 4 days, I was still waiting to give birth, and I really had not started early labor or anything like that. And that day I had an appointment with my OB. Now this is Tuesday, June 30th, and my appointment with her I think was like around noon. And I just remember that what the doctor wanted me to do was to schedule an appointment for an induction, because she didn't want me to go past the 41 weeks just to prevent any complications for, you know, baby or for me. And so we ended up scheduling that appointment there. And she also offered if I wanted a membrane swap. It sometimes can help to kickstart labor. And so anyway, it's a pretty simple procedure. It doesn't take very long. It's not really painful. It's, if anything, a little bit uncomfortable. Nothing that anyone, I think, can't handle. So I agreed to have this procedure done, and she did it right then and then, and went about my day. Up to this point in my pregnancy, I was feeling amazing. So I had a really great pregnancy, thank goodness. I really feel lucky for that, because from beginning to end, I cannot find one thing to complain about other than the fact that I had a little bit of heartburn and I was a little swollen on my feet. Actually, a lot swelling on my feet. And I probably at this point had had 3 or 4 Braxton Hicks contractions, and I think that's what it was. I wasn't really sure if it was just like abdominal pain or if it was Braxton Hicks contractions. I was never really able to tell them apart. But up to that point, I had been sleeping really well. I had been comfortable in my clothes. Like, I cannot complain about my pregnancy. So anyway, I went about my day and was pretty normal for the rest of the day. I was not experiencing any other symptoms or any, like, I almost thought that the swap that she did wasn't going to work, because she said that like sometimes it works almost immediately, sometimes within like a couple hours it starts to work. But I got ready to go to sleep that night and I didn't feel any different. So comes the following day. I am now 40 weeks and 5 days, and mind you, I was scheduled for my induction for the 4th of July. So just like fun fact. So comes the next day. I'm 40 weeks and 5 days at this point, and it is a Wednesday, July 1st. I woke up that day feeling stronger pain than usual, but nothing that I couldn't handle. Like, I was definitely coping with it the whole time. But around, I would say like noon, I definitely started to track what I thought were contractions, because they just started to feel a little bit stronger and stronger as time went by. So I used this app called Contractions, I guess. It's this little app that allows you to track your contractions, and I started tracking around 12 p.m. like I said, and around 7 or 7:30, yeah, my contractions were lasting about a minute to a minute and a half. but they were all over the place as far as frequency. It was like 40 minutes apart, or like 10 minutes apart, or an hour and 30 minutes apart. So I waited longer and just kept tracking these contractions. And I'm sorry for the weird lighting, like there's probably a cloud or something that just went by and messed with my lighting. But anyway, around 8:30 I decided to call the labor and delivery area in the hospital, and I told them that my contractions at that point were lasting a minute to a minute and a half, and they were coming about every 7 to 8 minutes. I was definitely feeling like the pain and the discomfort was increasing and increasing and increasing more and more. But what the nurse told me was to try to stay at home for as long as possible. And honestly, I wanted to do that as well. Like, I didn't want to be in really early labor at the hospital. Not like they would keep me there anyway, they'll probably send you back home. But I just don't like the idea of having to go through uncomfortable like pains and stuff and not being at home. Like, I feel like at home is the best place for me to feel like I can get naked and change my clothes or do whatever I need to do to cope with the pain. So I decided to obviously stay home as suggested by the nurse. I got ready for bed, like, you know, when I called the nurse, like I mentioned, it was 8:30ish. So I just got ready for bed. I showered. At that point in the shower, I was again experiencing a little bit more pain, but I was just breathing through the pain, and it was nothing that I could not handle at that point. So around 9:30 p.m. like, I was ready to go to sleep. I had, you know, blow dried my hair, I had brushed my teeth, showered, everything that I usually do, and I just got in bed. And Johnny also went to sleep, and he's usually the type that falls asleep pretty soon after, you know, going into the bed. So he fell asleep, and I tried my best to go to sleep, and I just couldn't. Like, the amount of pain again that I was feeling was preventing me from sleeping. So instead of going to sleep, I decided to distract myself as much as possible. I went downstairs, I started to watch TV. That wasn't really helping. I mean, it helped for a little bit, but it didn't help much. I was on my phone, I tried different things, and I just was amazed at how much my contractions were progressing super fast as time went by. So anyway, at this point I realized that I'm probably in early labor, and I'm probably gonna meet my son pretty soon. So really, I'm just excited. I'm trying to do my best to cope with the pain and to have control over my body and what my body is going through, so that my contractions are easier to cope with. I obviously didn't go to sleep. It was around 12:30 a.m. Now I'm 40 weeks and 6 days, and my contractions were lasting about 1 to 2 minutes every 4 to 6 minutes. So I was definitely getting more regular contractions as time went by. And I just tried to cope with the pain as much as possible, and every time that I would get a contraction, I would just breathe, like inhale, and then kind of make weird noises while exhaling, like, you know, like just trying to really cope with it. I did not want to stress myself out or freak out or anything like that. Like, I already wasn't experiencing any type of anxiety or anything, so I just try to remain calm as much as possible and breathe through everything. What really helped to cope with the pain was just to think that the more contractions that I was having, the more pain that I was having was getting me closer and closer to meeting my baby. That really helped me to have just a positive mindset and to focus on that, on like the end result of this really uncomfortable, painful experience. Probably around like 1 or 1:30 a.m. I decided that I would take a really hot bath and turn the jets on, so that every time I would have a contraction, the jets would hit my back, and that seemed to help a little bit. But you know, as the pain was increasing, it was not really doing much. But I just thought that the warm water was actually more hot than warm, was actually helping a little bit. So I was in there for probably a couple hours, and mind you, at this point, Johnny is like dead asleep and he does not know anything that's going on. I also don't want to wake him up because if it is a false alarm for whatever reason, he had to go to work the next day, and I just didn't want to bother him until I was sure that it was time to go to the hospital. At some time while I was in the bath, my mom came in the room because she had heard like the water running, and she was just there for me to provide like support if I needed anything. And I continued to track my contractions, and the reason why I recommend having an app to help you do that is because at one point the contractions got so strong that I was barely able to like click on the start button and the end button. Like it was just like a one-click thing, and it got really hard. Like I was shaking a little bit. I know a lot of people like to write their own notes, and I don't think that I would have been able to do that. So around 2:30-ish a.m. My contractions were a minute to a minute and a half long, and they were happening every 3 to 3.5-ish minutes. So I decided to call the labor and delivery nurse again and ask her if she thought it would be a good time for me to come into the hospital. And she said yes. So she gave me the green light. She asked how long I would take, so like when they could expect me, and I said about an hour. The hospital that we chose is about 30 to 35 minutes away from home with no traffic. So I knew that it would take us about 30 minutes-ish to get ready and settled into the car for us to leave, plus whatever 30 to 40 minutes it was going to take us to arrive to the hospital. So I said about an hour, and she said, okay, we'll see you here. So I went ahead and let Johnny know that it was time for us to go to the hospital, and he got up like in a flash and started to get ready. And he was kind of, we already had everything ready and packed, but it was like getting all the last minute things put together. And meanwhile, my mom and Johnny were getting ready. I wanted to take a shower to feel a little bit more revived, because after being in the bath with the hot water running and being sweaty and just like in pain and everything just made me feel really dehydrated and tired. So I just thought that taking a shower was going to help me feel just a little bit more fresh and awake, and it actually did. So I got in the shower, and my mom and Johnny were getting ready. Because of COVID, only 2 people were going to be able to be with me during my birth, and I'm not really sure what the guidelines are right now, but at the time they had just switched it back from only allowing 1 person in with you to 2 people, which I was really excited about because I definitely wanted, obviously, Johnny to be there, but I also wanted my mom to be there with me. At this point, again, like my contractions are so painful, but I'm trying to cope as much as possible. I'm like moving around, I'm breathing, I'm humming, I'm everything that you could possibly think of. The car ride, like I mentioned, was about 35 minutes long. It seemed like 2 hours for me. I was in such pain by that time that I could not sit down on the car. Like that was not a thing. Since I got in the car, I was on the seat, but I was on my knees kind of hugging the seat, and I'm just trying to like move my hips and like stand up a little bit as much as I could in the car. And I remember John asking me if I wanted to listen to music and like what kind of music I wanted to listen to or something like that, and I was just like, I don't care. Like I almost was tuning out everything that was going on around me, and all I was focusing on was like how to cope and manage with this pain. We finally made it to the hospital. Johnny got a wheelchair for me, and we made our way to the labor and delivery floor. Now, by the time that we got there and like were ready to check in, the nurses were already expecting me, so they immediately pulled me aside. They had Johnny and my mom check in at the front desk, and they just took me into this like receiving room where they took my blood pressure and they did an ultrasound to make sure that my baby was in the proper position to give birth, which thankfully he was. They checked to see how dilated I was, and I was at that point 5 centimeters dilated. And when I heard that, it just made me really excited because I was like, yes, like we're halfway there. this is worth it. Like whatever I'm going through is worth it. And in the room, I also had a COVID test done, and I was the only one that needed to get tested. Obviously, it came out negative, and I was helped by this lovely, wonderful, super nice nurse to like change into my hospital gown and just kind of prep myself for me to get transferred to the room where I would give birth. Now, my contractions at this point are coming at a very constant rate, and the nurse asked me if I wanted an epidural, and I told her that I wanted to wait a little longer and see how far my body could take the pain. But she did say that that was totally fine, but just like FYI, whenever you request the epidural, it doesn't mean that the epidural is going to come to you right away. It could be that the anesthesiologist is like with another patient and has other patients in line, and so it could take, you know, up to an hour to an hour and a half sometimes to get the epidural, and just to like for me to know that. So when she told me that, I was like, oh no, like let's get the epidural now. At this point, Johnny's already in the room with me, in this like receiving small room, and they had my mom wait in the lobby area until I was like settled into the room where I would give birth. So they prepped me for the epidural, and the anesthesiologist came in and you know, prepped the injection for me. I honestly did not expect the epidural to take as long as it did, or at least it felt like it took longer than I expected. I mean, it's obviously a pretty serious procedure and not something to take lightly, especially because of where it is being injected. But on top of that, my contractions would come and we would have to take pauses to kind of work around, you know, me trying not to move so much and them making sure that they weren't just like poking me where they weren't supposed to. So overall, it just took a little longer than I expected. Johnny was just there with me the whole time, being honestly extremely supportive. Johnny is a very calm person, and he projects a lot of that energy, and that really helped me out a lot. So anyway, I got the epidural and it hit me almost immediately. So I was finally able to rest, but obviously the doctors and the nurses are coming in to plug other things up on you and sensors and other things, and so I kept waking up, you know, pretty often, but overall I just felt so much better. Obviously, because of the epidural, I was not going to be able to walk, you know, until giving birth, so I had a urinary catheter put in me so that I wouldn't have to obviously use the restroom because I couldn't walk. And honestly, I cannot express enough how wonderful the team that I got was. So I know that nurses are already pretty amazing, but that was one of the things that was kind of in my mind as I was getting closer to labor. I just really wanted to have a really good experience, and the whole team exceeded my expectations. They were wonderful, so nice, would answer all of our questions, and yeah, I'm just really pleased with the whole team that I got. Now, due to COVID-19, Johnny and my mom had to wear a mask the whole time that they were there if there was any medical staff in the room. So whenever they were just with me, they could take the mask off. Because of COVID again, the way that things were gonna work is one person could stay with me until I left the hospital after giving birth. But my mom, in this case, she was gonna be able to be there for my birth, but had to leave 3 hours after my baby was born. So that's just kind of how the hospital system was working at that time. And again, I'm not really sure how things are now, but that's at least how it was back then. So around 11:30 a.m. the nurses came in and they broke my water, and I just started to make more and more progress as time went by. My baby was pretty low already, and around 2 p.m. the nurse that was with me primarily asked me if I wanted to start to do some practice pushing. So I was totally down for it, and we started pushing, and shortly after she's like, whoa, let me get the doctor in here. You're definitely like ready to push officially. And she called the doctor and the team, and it still took another like half an hour for them to arrive. But at this point, I'm actually already pushing. And so anytime a contraction would come, I would push for like however many seconds she told me. I think it was like 8 to 10 seconds. Now, mind you, during my birth, my doctor did ask if I wanted a mirror placed in front of me so I could see everything that was happening. And I really wanted that. So yeah, I was like, yes, I really want to do that. And so I saw pretty much me giving birth, and that was amazing. So after about an hour of pushing, I gave birth to my baby boy, Sebastian, and everything went pretty smooth. And the most important thing for me was that my baby was healthy. And you know, when I heard him cry for the first time, like they put him on my tummy, and eventually they put him on my chest, but he was just so delicate, and all I could think about was like, I need to be gentle with my baby, and I don't want to hurt him. Is he okay? Like, is everything okay with him? And all I could see is that he was very healthy. He started to cry right away, and he made his way to my breast and started to feed. And that, again, that was another moment for me where I was just in awe. Like, I was filled with so much happiness and love in my heart and within my soul. Everything was so worth it because of that moment of finally having my baby with me. At this point, like, we're all crying. I'm crying, Johnny's crying, my mom's crying, some of the nurses are crying. It was just a very beautiful birth. And even though we were technically not allowed to record the whole thing, we still managed to be sneaky enough to record, and so we have footage of me giving birth to my baby. So yeah, that's pretty much my birth story. I hope that you really enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the notifications so you know when I'm posting a new video. I have a lot of content ideas because obviously it's been so long that I was just writing ideas down, and so you'll definitely see more from me a lot more often. And so just make sure that you are subscribed to my channel so that you don't miss out on anything. Well, thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video, and I will see you next time.